I've realized something lately, and that is the way I see God, the way I perceive God, is really has a great bearing on how I see myself. Not just how I see myself, but how I end up becoming. If I'm a sincere person that's seeking after God, and I think God, He's been portrayed to me as an angry God or revengeful God, a God that is so holy that He has separated Himself from sin. As He looks upon humanity, He sees us as a bunch of worms you would just dangle over a fire, like Jonathan Edwards, sinners in the hands of an angry God. That hell is just, nipping at the bits to try to get us because we all deserve to go there unless you're one of God's elect. So if we see God like that, we see Him as judgmental, it shouldn't be any surprise that we don't become judgmental ourselves. Or we see Him disgusted with sin, disgusted with people who sin. Sin in itself is always undesirable. The sin is just things that are harmful for us. So yes, it is disgusting. But if you think about people, see them as sinners, there's that thing I talked about it recently. Or do we sin because we're sinners, or are we sinners because we sin? Of course, that's just the base. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as some depraved sinner that you're just bound to sin because that's who you are? Or do you see yourself as a child of God made in His image who sins because we live in a fleshly body and we're going to sin? I'm not a sinner who sins. I sin, but I'm a child of God who sins. I'm a child of God who misses the mark. If I see myself as a despicable, depraved sinner, then it wouldn't be surprising that I would think God is looking at me, with a frown and shaking His head at me all the time. I think that's how I thought He used to see me. But I don't see Him like that now. No. God was in Christ, reconciling the world to Himself. That's how much He loves us. He reconciled whatever division Adam caused. I always say we wouldn't be depraved. We didn't become depraved because of Adam, but we became deprived because of Adam. We were deprived of the paradise, the spiritual realm, the spiritual senses, that when our natural senses took over until Jesus came. Whatever separated we were in our minds by wicked works, I know we have that consciousness of good and evil. Now I can separate myself when I know I do wrong. But now because of grace, I don't separate myself. Now I come boldly to the throne because I've already been covered at the cross. The blood has already been applied. Whatever had to be rectified, it got rectified. I'm justified. By faith, I know I'm justified. My faith doesn't justify me. Jesus' blood justified me, but by faith, I believe that. And so therefore, I have peace with God. I'm not at odds with Him because I know what He did. I know who I am. I know I'm beloved. I'm His beloved child. And when He's looking at me with love. He's looking at me with grace. He's looking at me with mercy. And He's also looking at me as a faithful Father who knows how to discipline me, train me, bring me to the places I need to be in life. If I'll just listen and obey and realize that He's not a God that's angry with me. He's a God who loves me. And so when I start looking at Him and I see Him as a God of grace, then I become more graceful. When I see Him as a God of mercy, I become more merciful. When I see Him as a God of love, loving me, forgiving me, giving me mercy, then it gives me the ability to be able to reflect what I see. I reflect what I see. If I see Him as angry and mean and judgmental, don't be surprised if I don't become the same way. Very self-righteous and it's just an attitude you can see on some people. So I want to see Him as a loving, graceful, wonderful, loving Father that He is. He called Himself Father. He called Himself that. I get to call him that because he said, this is how you pray, our Father, which is art in heaven. I'm so thankful today I know who my Father is. Hope you have a great day.